I'm going to share with you guys 10 things. And I'm going to talk about these things that I've learned over the past 10 years or so in business, things I've experienced, things I've witnessed, things I've overheard. And there are going to be 10 things. I'm going to talk a few minutes about each one of them, and hopefully we have some time for some Q&A. The first thing I want to talk about is bootstrapping. So I'm a big fan of bootstrapping companies. And there's a lot of reasons why, but I'm going to focus on one specific reason right now. And the fundamental thing is this. There's a big difference between a bootstrap company and a funded company. And it has to do with money. On day one, a bootstrap company has to make money. That's what's going through their head up front, is we've got to make money. If we don't make money, we're not going to stay in business. On day one, a funded company has to spend money. That's what they have to do. They get a bunch of money in the bank and they have to spend it. And there's a fundamental core difference between those two mindsets. One that has to make money and one that has to spend money. And what I believe is this. I think there are certainly some people out there who are really damn good at making money. They're just like prodigies. Just like there are prodigy piano players and prodigy other musicians and prodigy, basketball players and whatnot. But a lot of people get really good at something by practicing it for a long period of time. And I think making money is something you can practice and get really good at over time. But if you're used to spending it, you're not going to be so good at making it. And this is what happens to a lot of venture-backed companies. They get really, really good at spending money. And then when the money runs out, they don't know how to make it. Now, a bootstrap company, hopefully, is really good eventually at making money. They have to start on day one, and a year or two, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years in, 10 years in eventually. Hopefully it's a lot earlier than that, but you get really, 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 really good at making money. And that, to me, is the right kind of thing you want to focus on as a small business owner. Getting used to being in the habit of making money and not just spending it. And there's one other thing I want to say about this before I move on to the next slide, which is that people say that you can't buy time. I think you can. I think you can buy time, and you buy time by owning your own schedule. And like Gary talked about this briefly about patience. When you are in a bootstrap company and you're making your own money and you're generating your own revenue to pay your own bills, you have all the time in the world. When you take money from a VC, you're renting time. When they decide that your time is up, you're up. And I'd much rather own than rent when it comes to my own schedule. So keep in mind, whenever you're starting something out, try and run it yourself, try and do it with your own money, try and do it on the side first before you go off and take money. The next thing I want to talk about is price. Now, price is one of those things that seems like it's ridiculous to even talk about, that you have to charge for things in this world. But in our industry, in the software business, in the tech world, it seems like charging for things is sort of an anomaly. Everyone's into giving things away for free. And I don't really get that. I think it works for a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of the companies out there. And I don't even think that those companies really exist. So if you round off the outliers, like the 0.001% of companies that don't charge for things and somehow survive, and you forget about those guys, you're left with everybody else, which is almost everybody else, which are companies that actually sell things. And so the idea that in our industry, selling something is an anomaly is very odd to me. I don't really understand it. Now, besides that, here's one of the great things about price. Price forces you to be good. And I think that when you are in business for yourself, you want to make sure that the forces you put upon yourself are ones that make you better. And giving something away for free is easy. Anyone can do that. Charging for something and getting people to pay you for it means you have to be good. And that, to me, is the right kind of pressure. There is nothing sort of there are a few things. Sex, family, friends. After that, the most intimate relationship between two people is when someone gives you a dollar bill for what you do for a living. That's an incredibly intimate relationship, and it gets very honest very quickly, too. If you give something away for free and you ask for people's feedback, they kind of don't really care. They don't really care about what you're doing because it's free. They're not invested in it. They didn't give anything up to get it. But when you start charging for things, people get really honest really, really quickly. It's the difference between asking a friend for advice and maybe asking your therapist, if you have one. Friends are very sort of understanding and very sort of comforting. They're not very honest with you. Some are, but most aren't. Most just want to support you, which is cool. But it's not a great way to think about getting really good advice. You want to actually get advice from someone that you pay or someone who pays you, because they're going to be really honest with you. And when they're using your product and they're paying you for it, they're saying that what I do for a living is valuable enough. I'm going to give it to you so you can do what you do for a living for me. And that is an incredibly honest exchange. And it's, in my opinion, the best way to get really, really good feedback from your customers. People often ask about that. How do you get good feedback from customers? Do you use this tool or that tool? The tool I use is the dollar bill. Charge for something, and you will get really honest feedback really, really quickly. And you can measure yourself up against that. And the cool thing is you can tweak it, too. So you can say, is this worth $20? Are we $20 good enough? Are we $50 good enough? Are we $100 good enough? Are we $500 good enough? And you can find out how good you are, and you can actually get better and charge more and find out that you're good enough to sustain a higher price. So I think it's a really good measure of how well you're doing. So keep in mind, whatever you're doing, try and put a price on it. Whatever it is, doesn't mean you can't give some stuff away for free, but focus on your core business. Whatever that core thing is, definitely get used to charging for it. So there's a lot of talk at business conferences and creative conferences about the word innovation and innovative. I hear it all the time. Anyone else who's been to conferences probably hears it all the time. A lot of talk about it. And I think that innovation is massively overrated. Usefulness is underrated. Usefulness is where it's at. A lot of people, their goal is to be innovative. Their goal is to do something new that no one's ever done before in a business. And that's okay in some ways. That's kind of cool to be able to do that. But if you're not building something useful, that innovation is going nowhere. Usefulness should pull through everything that you do. And whenever you're coming up with a new feature or a new product or whatever it is, you should keep asking yourself, not is this cool, not is this innovative, but is this useful? That's the way you're going to stay in business for as long as you want, by building useful things. Innovative things, they come and go. Cool wears off, useful never does. So I would stay focused on figuring out how to build something useful. When we do it, when we're building a product, we're doing anything, any small little thing, we're always asking ourselves, is this useful? Is this actually going to change somebody's behavior? Is someone going to do something better because of this thing? And it could be as simple as putting a number after something. So for example, if we have in Basecamp, for example, we have a messages section. And we've toyed with the idea of putting the number of messages after the message section link. And we kept asking ourselves, why? Why do we want to do that? Is it because we can? Would it possibly be innovative in some way? Would it be cool to do? Or would it be useful? And if it doesn't change somebody's behavior, we tend not to do it. So for example, does it really matter if someone knows if there's 18 messages versus 21 messages versus 40 messages? It really probably doesn't matter. It might matter if there's 0 or 10, but 10 to 11, 20 to 21, 20 to 50, it doesn't really matter. So we leave that kind of stuff out. So that's like an example of a very, very small decision we made based on usefulness. But entire products you have to think about, are these useful? And we've scrapped products before because they were innovative and cool, but not really useful. So I just stay focused on figuring out what it is that you're building and is it useful or not. I don't know if people are going to be posting on Facebook wall in 10 years, but I know they're going to be using Post-it notes. I'm convinced they will be using Post-it notes in 10 years. They're fucking useful. We all love them. And we should be thinking about building things like that and not just stuff that's new and cool. Now, new and cool isn't bad either, as long as it's tied to something useful. Useful comes first. Now, this is something, if you were here last year, I talked about this, but I want to hit on it again because it's such an important topic. This is the best business advice I think I've ever gotten, which is focus on what won't change in your business. Again, this is kind of tied to the whole innovation topic, but a lot of people are focused on what's new, what's next. Do I have to be doing this? Do I have to be doing that? Should I use this technology or that one? Very, very few of those decisions actually matter. What matters are the things that will not change over the next 10 years. And if you invest in those things, you're going to be kicking ass now and 10 years from now because your competitors probably are not going to be focused on this. Most people find it easier to focus on the new cool stuff. If you're focused on the stuff that won't change, it's going to be better. For example, in our business, speed is really important. Apps need to work fast. Our products need to respond quickly and be reliable. People are not going to wake up in 10 years and go, I wish 37 Signals products were slower, right? They're not going to say, I wish they sucked. They're not going to say, I wish they were more complicated. They're going to say today and 10 years from now that they want them to be simple, fast, reliable, secure, all of those things. So if we can take all of the energy that we have and all the resources that we have and pour them into those things, speed, reliability, functionality, simplicity, all that stuff, we're going to be in good shape today and 10 years from now. And in really, really good shape 10 years from now. Because details take a while. Quality takes a while. Whatever you're building is probably not going to be high quality today, but in a year it'll be better, and 2 years it'll be better than that. Because quality is just this iterative process. And if we're making the core functional things that matter today and 10 years from now better every day, we're going to be just kicking huge ass and huge leap ahead of any competitor that comes into the market. Because when they come into the market, they're not going to be good yet. They're going to be starting. We're going to be accelerating, we're going to be solid, and the things that matter are still going to be there. In other industries too, or other businesses, you can think of Amazon, for example. Amazon, people aren't going to wake up 10 years from now and wish their selection was worse, or wish that it took 3 days to get a package instead of overnight. And so Amazon puts a ton of money and a ton of resources into distribution and free shipping and things like that. So figure out what things are in your business that are not going to change over the next 10 years and focus on those. They may not be sexy, but they absolutely will pay off. Especially if you're in it for the long term, which I definitely recommend people are. DIY, this is really about hiring. This is a hiring topic. So we got into a situation a few years ago where we thought we needed a biz dev guy. And I don't know why we thought this, but we're like, everyone needs a biz dev guy, right? We need biz dev. Got to generate some biz, so let's get a biz dev guy. So I started interviewing biz dev guys. And their resumes are impressive, and they're well dressed, and all the stuff that you would expect from a biz dev guy. And they use impressive words and the whole thing, and everything's great. And I don't know what the fucking question to ask them. I don't know what I'm supposed to ask them. I don't know what I'm supposed to hear from them. I don't know if what they're saying is right. And the reason why is because I've never done that job, and no one in our company has ever done that job. So how can we possibly evaluate somebody when we don't know what they do? So I figured this out, and this is something we figured out kind of a while ago, but I forgot about it when I was looking to hire a biz dev guy. And the key is you have to do the job first before you can hire someone to do it. That's my point of view. And if it's not you, maybe it's your business partner, maybe it's somebody else in the company. But somebody internally should try and do something before you hire someone else to do it, if it hasn't been done before. Because you can try and spend your way out of problems, or you can try to learn your way out of problems. And I think if you try and learn your way out of a problem, you're going to come up with a much better solution and a much kind of wider solution. Not just a small solution by hiring somebody, but a deep understanding of that problem and that solution. When we first hired a customer service person, I did customer service for like 2 or 3 years before that. I answered all the emails, so I knew who to hire and what questions to ask and if they were bullshitting me or not, or if they were going to be good at doing that job. Before we hired a system administrator, David, my business partner, and Jameis, one of our programmers, did our system administration for the first 3 years, actually, before we hired a system administrator, because then we would know the job intimately. We could evaluate quality and personality and skills in a very deep, intimate manner that we couldn't if we were just hiring someone who we didn't actually know the job. So one of the problems with this is people freak out. They say, well, we can't grow fast then, because if it's just a couple of us, we haven't done a lot of things. What if we need other people? And my suggestion is always, just in general, to grow slowly. This actually puts a really good constraint on you. It forces you to learn stuff, which is really important, especially if you're running a business. You should really know just about how to do everything that's going on in your business. Now, I'm not a system administrator, but I know a little bit about it. I'm not a programmer, but I know a little bit about it. And that's because I've been around it and I tried to do it myself for a while. And that really does help you understand the people who are working for you and the people you have to hire. So keep that in mind when you go off and hire somebody. Try and do the job first. This is something that really is kind of on my nerves right now, so I thought I would share it. There's 2 types of apologies. There's an apology that a lawyer, an HR department person, a PR person, or a marketing person makes. And then there's an apology that you make when you really mean it. 2 different types of apologies. And companies and politicians are really bad at apologizing properly. Okay? What they typically say is, we apologize for any inconvenience we may have caused you. Right? You'll see this in press releases, you'll see this in statements, you'll see it on the news, talking heads make it all the time. We apologize for any inconvenience we may have caused you. And that's not a real apology. And here's why. If you're at a coffee shop and you've got some hot coffee and you trip and you spill it on somebody, what you say is, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's what you say when you mean it. You don't say, I apologize for any inconvenience I may have caused you, right? You say what you mean, which is, I'm sorry. This one on the right, or left, I guess for you guys, is what you say when you're full of shit and you don't care. So what I've found is that when you just say simply, I'm sorry, here's what happened, here's what we're going to fix, here's how we're going to fix it, here's how it won't happen or why it won't happen again, you're going to end up with a much more trusting customer base. And something was said last year here at Big Omaha by Jeffrey from Threadless at that time was, besides making money and staying in business and all that stuff, one of the great measures of figuring out if you're actually a good business or not is if your customers trust your apologies, if they believe your apologies. And if people do not believe your apologies, then you've got a lot of stuff wrong. If people do believe your apologies, you've got a lot of stuff right. And I think that's a really strong point, a really good point to keep in mind. That if people trust your apologies, you're doing a whole lot of stuff right. They're not going to trust one that says we apologize for any inconvenience we may have caused, but they will trust one that says I'm sorry, here's what happened, and it won't happen again. So don't let your lawyers apologize for you. If you're a business owner, you should be doing the apologies. You should take all the responsibility for this stuff and say you're sorry and explain what happened and don't let it happen again. People are very, very forgiving when you do it like that. This is actually something that Gary brought up. We have a different point of view on this particular topic. Right. Actually, our point of view might be the same, probably is the same, but the interpretation is a little bit different. I think it's very, very, very important for companies to draw a line in the sand. There are far too few companies that have a point of view, a clear perspective, a clear point of view, a clear opinion about who they are and what they do. I don't know what Dell stands for. I don't know what HP stands for. I don't know if Gateway is even in business anymore, but if they were, what do they stand for? I don't know. Does anyone know what does HP stand for? Does anyone here actually know what they stand for? Hewlett-Packard. That was good. That was really good. Okay, and Dell stands for Michael Dell, so that was easy. But really, what do these companies mean? What are they about? What would they say no to? And to me, that's the best way to figure out what you stand for is what you'd say no to. And this is a big problem, I think, in the creative industry, in the creative business. Agencies, design firms, web designers. You go to their sites, if you cover up the logo, they're all the same. There are very few companies out there, especially in the design firm world, in the agency world, that will tell you what jobs they won't take. If you do that, though, you're actually going to be in a much better position. You're going to find the right kind of clients. You're going to stand for something. People are going to know what you stand for, know what you believe in. And you're going to attract the right kind of customer. Specs, features, and technology are not what drive people. They might drive the geeks, and that's fine, but they don't drive the public. The public says, yeah, whatever, all the time. When I used to sell shoes at this place called Shelby's Pro Shop, where I grew up in Illinois, these brands, we carried Nike and FootJoy for golf shoes, and Wilson Pro Staff tennis shoes, and a bunch of other brands, Converse and whatnot. And they would send these reps in. The brands would send the reps in. And the reps would come in and tell us about all the fancy new technology that were in their shoes. The Nike rep would come in and tell us the difference between normal Nike Air and Zoom Air, and then shocks. And then people would, the Wilson rep would come in and talk about their Goodyear rubber outsole and the midsole and the EVA and all this different technologies, flex groove and Texon boards and all this different stuff they would come in and tell me about so they could arm me as a salesperson to sell their products. That's what the company thought was important, those things, because they sent reps to tell me so that I could transfer that to the customers. And it turns out, if you watch people buy shoes, here's how they do it. They go to the shoe store, and first of all, you say, can I help you? And they say, no, I'm just browsing. So that's the first thing they do. Then they look at their shoes are usually up on this pegboard thing, and they pick a couple out, they look at it, they kind of spin it around, they put it back, and they walk around, they take another one, and they're usually stuffed with paper and whatnot, and sometimes they try and tear the paper out and put it on even though it's the wrong size. That's how people do it. Or maybe they will finally say, hey, do you have this in a 10 or whatever? And I'll go in the back, and I'll come back out with the box with the shoe. And I'll start talking about the shoe. Oh, this is awesome. This is this new Nike, Zoom Air 180. It's got, check this out. You can see the air from all angles, and it's got Zoom Air in the front and all this stuff. And they're just like, yeah, whatever. Basically, what they do is they put the shoe on, and then they walk around. Then they do this bouncing thing to see if it's cushioned enough, because it's some simulation of what they're going to do in real life. I don't know what people are doing. Then there's usually this mirror, this low mirror, and they go like this, and then they kind of go like that to see what it looks like. And they walk around a little bit more, and they usually keep one of their other shoes on. So there's this comparison thing. And then they ask how much it costs, and then they either buy it or they don't. So it's either they want to know, does it look like, is it comfortable, and can I afford it? That's what people want to know. They don't want to know about all the technology. They don't want to know about the EVA, ethyl vinyl acetate. They don't want to know about the Nike Air. They don't want to know about the gel from Brooks. They don't care about that stuff. They care about the basics to them, which is, does the shoe fit? Do I like the way it looks? And can I afford it? And I saw the same thing with tennis rackets. People would come in with tennis rackets, or to buy a tennis racket, and I would talk about the wide body versus the thin body, graphite versus fiberglass, natural gut string versus synthetic, all this stuff. Here's how they would buy tennis rackets. They would look at the tennis racket, and they pick it up, and they, if it was green, they'd say, do you have this in purple? That's what they would first say. Or does this come in other colors? Then they would swing it, because they all feel the same when you swing them, but they would still swing the rackets, because that's what you do in real life. And then they would bounce their hand off of it. And I'm talking about sweet spots and graphite and control and all this stuff, and they're just, bouncing it around. Sometimes they listen to it. I don't know what that was all about. They ask about, can they put different grip on it? They ask all the questions that the companies don't tell you about, because the companies are obsessed with the features and the technologies, because that's what they do all day. They don't actually watch people buy stuff. And when you watch people buy stuff, they just want the simple shit. They just want the stuff that works for them, that solves their own problems, and it just works. They like the way it looks. They like the way it feels. It's comfortable. It's affordable. That's what people want. I've seen the same thing in websites. I've seen the same thing in software. I keep seeing this pattern repeat itself, yet companies keep talking about the stuff on the top, the specs, the technology, and the features. They're missing the boat. They're not speaking the same language. Customers are not listening to what they're saying because it doesn't make any sense to them. So when you are trying to sell something, listen to what people are trying to say. Listen to what they're buying. Watch what they're buying. Watch how they're buying it. And you'll find out that they just need a few things done really, really well. And that is really, I think, the secret to all this stuff, is figuring out the basics, nailing the basics, not worrying about all the other stuff that's possible. Nail the basics. Really important point. The last thing I want to talk about is this idea of less. Less is kind of the cornerstone of our company. We do less than everybody else. Our features, we have fewer features than everybody else. We work less than other people. We don't work on Fridays in the summers. We don't want people to work crazy ass hours. We don't want that. We want people to do less work. We want people to work less hours. We want to do less things in our products, but really get the things we do really, really, really good. Really focus on them and polish them up really, really well. And I know there's a lot of people who talk about different types of things you can do, different types of systems for productivity and to-do lists and different formats for to-do lists and different, getting things done systems. And there's a whole wide variety of systems. And they want to know how they can get all this stuff done. And the answer is just do less of it. Just do less stuff. That's how you get more stuff done. You do less stuff. And you actually, instead of finishing half, you finish 100%. That feels pretty damn good. And that's actually, it sounds kind of silly, but it's totally true. We have never once as a company regretted doing less. We've always regretted doing more. We've always regretted saying yes more than we've regretted saying no. No is such a liberating thing. And this goes back even to when I was doing website design for myself. I would usually do these really elaborate proposals, which is what a lot of firms still do. These really elaborate proposals, and they try and get all really shiny proposals and long and thick proposals and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, people just want to look at the last page, see how much it costs, and how long it's going to take. And they don't read all your fancy proposals, and they don't care. And I realized this eventually, and I'm like, man, why am I writing this stuff if no one's actually reading it? So what I started to do was cut shit out of my proposals. And it didn't matter. I still kept getting the same work. And eventually I ended up with one-page proposals. And it took me 10 minutes to write one, because I didn't really write anything. They already came to me because they know what I can do. So they just want to know how much it's going to, or how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost. I don't need to pitch them again on hiring me. And I found out that that worked. And everything we've done as a company has been trying to do less and less and less and just focus on those few things really well. It's really hard to do anything well. But if you try and do a lot of stuff well at the same time, you're really not going to be able to do it. Try and focus on just a few things, and this is always an option. Less is always an option. When you think you can't get something done, cut it in half. When you've got 10 ideas, try and do 5. When you think you need more people, maybe you need less people. Maybe it's not that you need more people, it's that you need less people. Because more people is harder to manage, more people is harder to handle. All that stuff, less is always an option, so keep that in mind. So those are the things I want to talk about before we do. I have 5 minutes for some Q&A. So if you guys want to start lining up, we can talk about some of the stuff or anything else I haven't talked about. You'll also find some of these ideas in our book that just came out called Rework, which is all about sort of looking at business, at general business practices, and saying, why are we doing it this way? Why do we have to do it like this? If we were born again today and never were exposed to business ever, would we still do it like everyone else, or would we do it a different way? So we've been kind of questioning these assumptions in business over the last 10 years or so, and all of these sorts of ideas are in this book, Rework, which you can actually buy outside the hallway. So let's take some Q&A, actually. Here's a question up front.
Hi, Jason. Jason, I'm Rick.
Hi.
First, how's the new space?
So
Been following that.
we're building a new office.
Yeah.
We've been sharing an office for 7 years, actually even longer than that. We're finally building our own office. It's going to be done in July.
Great. Adding more people?
No.
Okay.
We're actually, in our office, we're building a theater, a classroom, big classroom, about 40 seats, where we can do workshops and seminars, and that's one of the reasons why we're building the office.
I wanted you to just comment real quick. I really enjoyed a post that you made recently about being lazy.
Yes.
And if you could go on, because I don't remember everything, but it really resonated. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I think that laziness is sort of the best ROI, you know? Just like, get lazy sometimes. And the cool thing about getting lazy is that you find out that all the things you thought you had to do, you really don't have to do, and you just solve the problem in a really, really simple way. And that, like, those proposals that I was talking about, like not having to do long proposals and doing short ones instead, that's because I got lazy too. I just didn't want to do them anymore. So I started doing shorter ones. And I just said, you know what? I'm kind of lazy about stuff like this and paperwork. I don't want to do it. And it didn't matter. And every time I've said, like, it doesn't really matter, it's worked out just fine. So I think it's totally okay to be lazy, and you should actually embrace that sometimes. Yep. Hi.
My name's Will.
Hey, Will.
I'm a longtime reader of your blog, and we
Thanks.
use your products at my office. So first, I just want to say thanks a lot. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
My question is, you just talked about the one-page proposal and why you got into that. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas, or you could share with us your ideas on going after new business or finding new clientele base or companies you really want to work with specifically.
Yeah. The way we did it was we turned off a lot of people. And that's how we found great clients. Because, you know, our first website, if you go to 37signals.com/manifesto, you guys can look at our first site. This was launched in '99 when everyone was a full service provider and everything was really flashy and colorful and stuff. Ours was black and white. And it had 37 ideas on it. It had no portfolio work, none of that stuff. Which a lot of people thought, what are you doing? You're a web design firm, you need to show your work. We wanted to share ideas. Because everyone's got good work somewhere. You could like show work. And most people who show work, they didn't actually do that work. Like they did a small portion of the work. So we wanted to share some ideas. And that's how we found great clients. Because when people share your ideas, you have a really deep relationship with them. When they just like your work, it's not the same sort of relationship. So I just think like, find out what you stand for and say it everywhere you possibly can. Say it out on the street corner if you have to, and you'll find the right kind of people who will join with you.
Sweet.
Yeah, sure.
I'm Matt, and I've got a quick question. You guys have got a couple different products, two of which are Basecamp and Backpack. And when both of those products initially launched, they were dramatically different. One was very much squarely a business tool, one was very much squarely a personal tool. Over the years, it seems like they've begun to converge a little bit. Sometimes they're called different, or certain features may be called different things in different products, but generally speaking, they're still the same. So, how do you see that? How do you decide whether or not to, merge certain things or call them the same product eventually, or how do you decide that discrepancy?
So Backpack is sort of a junk drawer for us, which is unfortunate because it's actually a really great product, but it's got a lot of stuff in it that probably shouldn't be there. So we kind of look at the problems that we're solving and figure out where okay, there you are. I couldn't see you. Basecamp is a project management / collaboration tool. So things that are really related to projects go in Basecamp. Things that are sort of all the loose ends. Backpack, like I said, is a junk drawer because most people's work lives are like a junk drawer. You've got an idea over here, you got a to-do list over there, you've got this over here, you've got to remind yourself to pick up the dry cleaning tomorrow, which isn't something you'd really put on your calendar because your calendar's for this event, or for real events. So we have both a calendar feature and a reminders feature in Backpack. And it really comes down to figuring out, if it's for projects, it's really a Basecamp feature. If it's for like running your business and just stuff, it goes in Backpack. If it's for real-time communication, it's usually for Campfire. And if it has to do with keeping track of people and conversations and tasks related to those people, it goes into Highrise. So it's really about like people, projects, real-time communication, and like just everything else is pretty much how Backpack is set up right now. Yep. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoever's first. Or in stereo, if you guys can read your own minds.
Google Wave, are you afraid of it?
No,
And maybe you could tell people what it is. if you
I
don't.
can't actually tell people what Google Wave is, which is why I'm not afraid of it. I'm in general not afraid of competition at all, but that's not because they can't beat us, because we can certainly be beat. Anyone can be beat. But it's basically, the problem is this: I can't control what the competition's doing. Google's going to do what Google's going to do, and Yahoo's going to do what they're going to do, and Apple's going to do what they're going to do. I'm doing what I'm doing, and if I make my customers happy, that's fine. If they make their customers happy, that's fine too. Maybe 10 years ago I would be nervous, because 10 years ago there was a shelf, and that's how you bought software. Whatever was on the shelf is all you could buy. Today the internet is the biggest shelf ever. And I can have 10,000 or 100,000 paying customers, and Google can have their million customers, and Yahoo can have their million customers. It doesn't matter. There's plenty of customers to go around, so I'm not that concerned about other people's stuff. And also, worrying about the competition is a great way to stress yourself out and like get really anxious about things. And I just feel like it's not worth getting anxious about things you can't control. That's sort of my take on that. Yep.
My name's Heath. Love Basecamp.
Thank you.
I see that there's a lot of different feature requests that come through.
Yes.
And I'm glad that you focus on less, because the tools are easy to use. But what I was wondering is, when do you decide to add a new feature, and what is your average incubation period for adding new features to Basecamp?
Typically, we add stuff when we need it. So we use our own products. So a big part of this is it's not being selfish necessarily, it's about understanding again. I find it to be very difficult to truly solve someone else's problem, but I can solve my own really, really well. And so when customers' requests line up with our requests and our own ideas, we know that we can do something that's really great. So that's typically how it works. We do occasionally do things that customers need that we don't need. For example, Basecamp has time tracking, which we don't do. And if you use Basecamp time tracking, you'll know it's not very good. And the reason it's not very good is because we don't use it. And because we don't use it, we don't know how to judge it. And so we need to get better at that, either by starting to track time or to bring some people in who really know about that. Or maybe we even kill the feature. I don't know. I mean, I'm not like going on the record with that, but I don't know. Maybe we do kill the feature. I don't know. But I'm not happy with it. And it's mainly because we don't use it. So like cobwebs start forming in places where you don't go in your house, and the areas in the products that you don't use, and that's one of those areas. So we look for the intersection between customer requests and our own requests. Features can take anywhere from 2 weeks to longer, but we try and do stuff in 2 weeks. If we can't get it done in 2 weeks, we're probably trying too hard. I should say the problem's probably too big. We need to cut that problem into smaller and smaller and smaller chunks until we can get it done in 2 weeks.
I appreciate the notifications too.
Oh, cool.
When you roll them out.
Sure.
Second question was consistency. Like, you got commenting on to-dos, milestones, commenting in whiteboards, then you got the message threads, and continuing those threads. It's like the tools are a little different in each of those places. So, is there a reason that there's the inconsistency in those tools, or is it just people are used to doing it a certain way, and you don't want to, like, I don't know, force people to relearn how to use the tool they're familiar with?
Comments on messages, to-dos, and milestones are all the same, but whiteboards, they're not. And that's for a variety of nasty reasons. Specifically, that whiteboard's not really part of Basecamp. It's like an integrated service, and I'm not happy with that experience either. So we're actually going to be working on that soon. But in general, we don't favor consistency that much. We favor context. So I'm more a fan of context than consistency. I think consistency is overrated, especially in the design world. I think you see things like style guides all over the place. You know, you got to do it like this. It's got to be like that. I don't know. Does it really matter? Really? I don't know. I mean, if it's different in one place, a little bit different, big deal. I don't really think it's a big deal. You know, some big, huge mega brands might think it's a big deal, but most people's brands, it doesn't really matter. So I'm more a fan of working within context instead of consistency personally. But I agree, we can be better in that area for sure. This is the last question, and I'm up here for a Q&A session, I think, afterwards, so we can do some more if you guys want.
Hey, Jason. Josh Bullock
Hey.
from Feisty Goat Interactive. I was curious about, you mentioned price.
Uh-huh.
In your book, you've also, and I've heard you speak before, you've also mentioned, like, follow the great chefs where they give stuff away.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all here to make money. That's why we're in business. So where's the balance? Where is it? I mean, is it possible that you guys have contributed to this idea where you can't charge for stuff because you're supposed to give it away?
Yeah, we give some stuff away.
Sure.
Small, simple versions of our products, knowledge, Ruby on Rails we give away, but we have something to sell you too. Like, you can't walk into a bakery and just ask for a muffin and just leave without paying for it, but maybe they'll give you a sample, or maybe they have a little sample up front, and you take, oh, that's pretty damn good, I'll buy one of those. Like, that's who we are. We're a bakery, okay? If the bakery worked like the internet, there'd be no bakeries. There'd be free shit everywhere, and everyone would be out of business. So it's okay. It's okay. You can't walk into a restaurant and be like, restaurants don't work on volume in terms of how many people walk in their doors. Like, this is the internet thing. That, like, if you have 50 million visitors, you're going to stay in business somehow. A restaurant that has 50 million visitors and no one paying for anything is going to be out of business quickly. So I think that you're better off giving free samples of things that you also charge for. And that has been a very effective method. And it's not something we invented. People have been doing this forever. It's just going back to the basics of business. Give people a sample. It's basically emulating drug dealers. Give them a little hit. They get hooked, and then they buy more when they like it. And that's I think, the best possible method you can possibly go after. But don't just give stuff away. You've got to have something to sell on the back end. Yep. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for coming.